When silence became louder than words, the phone sat on the table glowing in the dim light of Keanu's living room. It was late evening. The city outside was alive with noise, but inside his apartment everything felt strangely quiet. He stared at the screen, waiting for a message or a callback. He had already tried 3 times. Each time the call went unanswered. Sandra never ignored his calls. She was always quick to reply, even if only with a short text. They had built a bond over years, a friendship that went deeper than most people could see. They had stood together in the spotlight of Hollywood, shared the weight of fame, and also found comfort in each other's quiet moments away from the world. So tonight the silence felt different. It felt heavy. Keanu leaned back on the couch, his hand resting on his chin. Questions kept circling in his mind. Was she busy? Was she upset about something? Or was she in trouble? He knew it was possible she just needed rest. But there was something in his heart, a small voice telling him this was not ordinary silence. He remembered the last time they spoke. Her voice had sounded softer than usual, almost tired, like she was holding something inside. She had laughed at his jokes, but the laughter did not feel full. It felt like a mask. Now, as his calls went unanswered, those small signs began to echo louder. He stood up and began pacing across the room. He thought about sending another text, but words on a screen felt too weak. He wanted to see her, to look in her eyes, to know she was fine. But then he hesitated. Would showing up at her home be too much? Would it make her feel he did not respect her space? Keanu was always careful about boundaries, always humble about the space he occupied in people's lives. But tonight was different. The clock ticked. Each second felt heavier. The city lights outside blurred as he looked out the window trying to calm himself. But his heart refused to stay calm. Finally, he made a decision. Respect was important, yes, but so was care. So was kindness. Sometimes friendship meant stepping forward even when you were not invited. Sometimes silence was not a request for space, but a cry for help. Keanu grabbed his jacket, slipped on his boots, and headed out the door. The night air was cool, brushing against his face as he walked to his motorcycle. He had always loved the freedom of riding, the way the world opened when the engine roared, but tonight it was not about freedom. It was about urgency. He needed to know she was safe. The streets rushed past him as he drove. Neon signs flickered, cars moved like restless waves, and faces blurred in the crowd. Yet in the middle of it all, his mind stayed focused on Sandra. He remembered the way she always cared for others before herself, the way she gave her heart fully to people. What if that heart was breaking now, in silence, while no one noticed? As he reached her street, his heartbeat grew faster. Her home was simple yet warm, a place she had always described as her safe corner away from the chaos. He parked the motorcycle, removed his helmet, and stood for a moment at the gate. The house was dark, with only a faint light glowing from one window. He took a deep breath and walked to the door. Each step carried both hope and fear. He pressed the doorbell, waiting for the sound of footsteps. But the seconds stretched. No sound came. He knocked gently, calling her name. "Sandra, it's me." Silence again, a stronger knock this time. His voice grew heavier, filled with concern. "Sandra, are you there? Please open the door." The air around him seemed still, as if the whole street was listening. He felt his chest tighten. Doubt and fear pressed against his ribs. Should he wait longer? Should he leave and call again? Or should he trust the instinct that something was truly wrong? His hand rested on the door, and in that moment, he realized that sometimes the greatest test of respect was not to stay away, but to step closer. He turned the handle slowly, not sure what he would find inside. The door creaked open, and as he stepped in, the silence of the house wrapped around him like a storm. The silence inside the walls, the door closed softly behind him, and Keanu stood in the dim hallway of Sandra's home. The air inside was still, heavy, almost too quiet. He could hear his own breath, slow but sharp, and the faint ticking of a clock somewhere deeper in the house. He called her name again, this time more softly. "Sandra, it's me." His voice echoed faintly through the space, but no reply came. He took a few careful steps forward. The hallway walls were lined with framed photos, moments from her life, smiling faces, memories frozen in time. He glanced at them quickly, his eyes searching for any sign that she had been here recently, but everything looked untouched. The faint light he had seen from outside was coming from the living room. Keanu walked toward it, his heart beating faster with each step. He pushed the door gently, and the room opened before him. A lamp on the corner table was switched on, casting a warm but lonely glow. A cup of tea sat on the coffee table, half full as if it had been left in a hurry. Beside it lay an open book, its pages slightly bent. He could almost picture her sitting there, reading, before something pulled her away. He touched the cup gently. The tea was cold. Not fresh. She had not been here for a while. Keanu called again, louder this time. "Sandra!" But the house gave him only silence in return. He moved through the rooms, carefully opening each door. The dining room was empty. The study was quiet. In the kitchen, he found a plate with a sandwich, untouched. It made his chest tighten. She was here. She had been here. But where was she now? He walked toward the staircase, his boots pressing against the wooden floor. A sense of unease grew heavier in him. He did not want to imagine anything bad, but the thought crept in anyway. What if she had fallen sick? What if she was hurt? He slowly climbed the stairs, calling her name once more. "Sandra, please, it's me. Answer me." On the landing, the hallway stretched into darkness with only the moonlight slipping through a window at the far end. Doors stood closed on each side. He opened the first one. It was her guest room, neat and untouched. The second was a storage space, filled with boxes. Finally, he reached her bedroom door. He paused for a moment, his hand on the handle. His chest rose and fell heavily. He wanted to believe she was inside, maybe just asleep, maybe too tired to pick up the phone. He wanted to believe everything was fine, but deep inside, he knew the silence had meaning. He turned the handle slowly and pushed the door open. The room was dark, except for the pale glow of the moonlight slipping through the curtains. The bed was neatly made, no sign of anyone resting there. But then his eyes fell on something. On the nightstand her phone lay face down. He walked over quickly and picked it up. The screen lit up at his touch. Missed calls. His calls filled the screen. His heart clenched as he scrolled. Why would she leave her phone behind? He sat on the edge of the bed, holding the phone tightly in his hand. His mind raced. He thought of all the times she had supported him, all the times she had been his safe place. He could not leave her now, not when something felt so wrong. Then he noticed something else. A folded piece of paper lay beside the phone. He reached for it with careful hands and opened it. The words were simple, but they cut deep. "I just need time. Don't worry about me." His breath caught. He read the note again, trying to make sense of it. Time for what? What was she going through that she could not share with him? The silence of the house seemed louder now, pressing against him. He felt both relief and worry. Relief that she had left a message. Worry that she had walked away from everyone who cared for her. Keanu stood up and looked around the room again. He knew one thing for certain. He could not just leave. He could not walk out of her home and pretend everything was fine. Sandra mattered too much. His hands tightened into fists. If she needed time, he would respect that. But if she was hurting, if she was facing something alone, he would not let her drown in silence. He would find her. He would be there. He walked back downstairs, the note still in his pocket. The cold tea, the untouched food, the quiet house, everything pointed to a woman who was caring more than she wanted to show. As he stepped outside again, the night felt different. The city noises were still there, but inside him a fire had been lit. He whispered to himself, almost like a vow. "Sandra, you don't have to go through this alone. I'll find you." The motorcycle engine roared to life again, breaking the silence. Keanu rode into the night, not knowing what awaited him, but certain of one thing. This was only the beginning. Searching for shadows, the night streets stretched ahead, glowing with neon lights in the endless rush of cars. Keanu rode with steady focus, his mind replaying the note again and again. "I just need time. Don't worry about me." The words felt calm on the surface, but underneath they carried weight. People asked for time when they were in pain, when they could not explain what they were going through. His thoughts shifted to memories of her. He remembered evenings when Sandra would call him after a long day, her voice filled with laughter but her eyes quietly tired. She had always been strong, always put others before herself, but he knew strength sometimes hid wounds that no one else could see. As he stopped at a red light, he pulled out his phone and opened his messages. He scrolled through their conversations, jokes, encouragement, little details of their daily lives. She had been normal just a few days ago. So what had changed? The light turned green, and he continued his ride. He decided to visit a place he knew she often went when she wanted quiet, an old cafe at the edge of town. It was a small spot, not crowded, the kind of place where she could sit for hours without being disturbed. When he arrived, the cafe was nearly empty. A few people sat inside, sipping coffee, but she was not there. He spoke to the barista, who recognized her instantly. "Yes, she was here yesterday evening," the barista said softly. She looked thoughtful. She stayed for a while, then left. "Didn't say much." Keanu thanked her and stepped outside again. The trail was faint, but it was something. He leaned against his motorcycle for a moment, staring at the street. His mind whispered doubts. Maybe she truly wanted space. Maybe chasing her would make her pull away more. But then his heart spoke louder. A true friend doesn't vanish when times get heavy. Respect and kindness sometimes mean staying close even when you're asked to stay away. He decided to visit another place. Years ago, during filming, she had shown him a small park not far from her home. She had told him it was her thinking place, where she went when life felt overwhelming. He rode there quickly, the night air sharp against his face. The park was quiet, lit by a few lamps. Benches stood empty. Trees swayed gently, and the fountain in the center whispered with the sound of water. He walked slowly, searching each corner, his heart beating faster at every shadow. Then he noticed something on one of the benches near the fountain, a scarf. He picked it up, holding it carefully. It was hers. He remembered seeing her wear it during a casual dinner weeks ago. His chest tightened. If she had been here, where had she gone next? He sat on the bench for a moment, the scarf in his hands. Memories returned. Her smile, her kindness, the way she always found words to comfort him when he was at his lowest. Once, after a painful loss in his life, she had been the one to sit beside him in silence. No words, just presence. He thought about how much that had meant. Now, it was his turn to be that presence for her. His phone buzzed suddenly. His heart leapt as he checked the screen. But it was not Sandra. It was a message from a mutual friend, asking if he had seen her lately. That made his worry deepen. If others were noticing her absence, it was not just in his mind. Something was happening. He typed a quick reply, but then stopped. He did not want to cause panic. He needed to find answers first. Standing again, he looked around the park. The silence here was different from the silence in her home. It was open, like a question waiting to be answered. He knew she had been here, but the trail ended with the scarf. Keanu clenched his jaw. He could not give up. She had been his strength many times, and now he owed her his resilience. He placed the scarf gently into his jacket pocket and walked back to his motorcycle. The city stretched out before him, filled with millions of people, but right now it felt smaller, like every road was pointing him toward the truth he needed to uncover. He whispered under his breath, as if she could hear him somewhere out there. "I'll keep looking, Sandra, no matter how far I have to go." The engine roared again, and the search continued into the night. The whispers of truth. The city lights blurred as Keanu rode on, the scarf tucked safely in his jacket. Every street, every turn felt like a step deeper into a puzzle. He was following fragments, faint traces of Sandra, hoping they would lead him closer to her. He stopped outside another place, an old bookstore they both loved. Years ago, during filming, she had taken him here, saying it was one of her secret escapes. "Books are the only friends who never ask for more than you can give," she had told him with a smile. It was late, but the small shop still had lights glowing inside. Keanu walked in quietly, the bell above the door ringing softly. The scent of paper and old wood filled the air. Behind the counter, the shop owner looked up, his eyes widening in recognition. "Keanu Reeves," he whispered in surprise. Keanu gave a small nod and leaned closer. "I'm looking for Sandra. Has she been here recently?" The man's face grew thoughtful. "Yes, she was here earlier this week. She spent a long time in the poetry section." She looked distracted. She bought a small journal, nothing else. When I asked if she was okay, she just smiled faintly and said she was fine. But she wasn't. You could feel it. Keanu's chest tightened at those words. He thanked the man and left, his mind racing. A journal. Sandra was writing again. When she wrote, it usually meant she was carrying something too heavy to speak aloud. He stepped outside and pulled out his phone. He thought about calling more people who knew her, friends, colleagues, but part of him feared spreading her pain before he understood it himself. He wanted to protect her privacy, even as he searched for her. As he stood by his motorcycle, lost in thought, a familiar voice called from behind. "Keanu?" He turned, surprised. It was Lena, one of Sandra's closest friends from her early acting days. She looked worried, almost breathless, as if she had been searching too. "You're looking for her too," Lena said softly, reading his face. Keanu nodded. "She hasn't answered me. I went to her house. I found a note. I found her scarf. But I still don't know where she is." Lena's eyes lowered. "She's been quiet with me too. Last week she told me she felt tired, like the world was too loud. She said she wanted to disappear for a while. I thought she just meant rest. But now—" Keanu listened carefully, every word cutting into him. "Do you know where she might go when she feels like that?" Lena hesitated. Then she whispered, "There's a place by the coast. She once told me it was her safe corner, where she could breathe without anyone watching. I don't know if she's there now, but if she needed time, that's where she might go." A faint light of hope flickered in Keanu's chest. It wasn't certain, but it was a direction. "Thank you," he said firmly, his voice filled with quiet determination. Lena touched his arm gently. "Please, when you find her, remind her she's not alone. She forgets sometimes. She gives so much to everyone, but she forgets to let others give back." Keanu nodded. Her words echoed deeply inside him. Sandra had always been that kind of person, strong, giving, selfless. But even the strongest souls needed someone to remind them they didn't have to carry the world alone. He put on his helmet again. The scarf pressed against his chest like a promise. As he started the engine, his mind was clear. The coast. That was his next step. The ride was long, the road stretching out into darkness, but he felt a fire inside. Every mile brought him closer to her, closer to understanding what she was hiding. The wind whipped against his face, but he kept riding, whispering to himself, "Hold on, Sandra. I'm coming." As the city lights faded behind him and the open road stretched toward the ocean, he knew this journey was no longer just about finding her. It was about reminding her of something deeper, that kindness and friendship were strongest in the moments when silence tried to break them apart. The edge of the ocean, the night was quiet except for the low hum of Keanu's motorcycle as he reached the coastal road. The ocean stretched endlessly on his left, dark waves breaking against the shore with a rhythm that felt both calming and haunting. The salty air brushed against his face, and the sound of the sea grew louder as he slowed down. He parked near a small lookout point, the kind of place people visited when they needed to be alone with their thoughts. The moonlight shimmered across the water, painting silver trails that seemed to stretch forever. Keanu stepped off the bike and scanned the area. Benches, rocks, the curve of the beach below, empty, but his heart refused to accept emptiness. He knew Sandra was close. He walked down the narrow path that led to the sand. The beach was quiet, only the waves and the wind whispering through the night. His boots sank into the sand as he moved slowly, his eyes searching the shoreline. Then, in the distance, he saw a figure, sitting on a rock near the water, shoulders bent, hair moving gently in the breeze. His breath caught. It was her. He stopped for a moment, watching. Part of him wanted to run forward, to call her name loudly, but something held him back. He could feel the weight in her posture, the silence around her. This was not a moment for rushing. It was a moment for respect. He walked closer, each step soft, careful. When he was near enough, he spoke gently. "Sandra." She turned slowly, her eyes meeting his. The moonlight revealed a tired smile, fragile but real. "Keanu," she whispered. Her voice was soft, almost like she had been expecting him, and yet surprised at the same time. He sat beside her on the rock, the waves breaking just a few feet away. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence was heavy, but not empty. It was filled with everything unspoken between them. Finally, she broke it. "I knew you'd come." He looked at her carefully. "I called. I came to your home. I found your note. I was worried." Her eyes lowered. "I didn't mean to make you worry. I needed to step away. Everything felt too heavy. I couldn't carry it anymore." He listened, his heart tightening at her words. "You don't have to carry it alone," he said softly. "You never did." Her eyes shimmered in the moonlight, tears she had tried to hold back now breaking free. "I know, but sometimes I forget. Sometimes I feel like the world expects me to always smile, always be strong. And I give so much. I keep giving until there's nothing left for me. So I disappear. Because if I stay, I feel like I'll break." His chest ached hearing her say this. He thought of all the times she had been there for him, all the kindness she had given without asking for anything in return. She was always the strong one, but even the strongest needed rest. He placed a hand gently over hers. "You've been there for me when I couldn't stand. You've given me more than words can ever explain. Now it's my turn. Let me be here. Let me carry some of it with you." She looked at him, truly looked at him, and for the first time that night her shoulders loosened. "You always know what to say," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Not always," he admitted. "But I know this, you're not alone, Sandra. Not now, not ever." The waves crashed louder behind them, as if the ocean itself wanted to remind her she was still alive, still here. She leaned her head lightly on his shoulder, her tears falling quietly. He didn't move, didn't speak. Sometimes silence was not a wound, it was a comfort, when shared with someone who understood. Minutes passed like that, the two of them sitting by the ocean, letting the weight of the world slowly slip away with each wave. Then she whispered, so quietly he almost didn't hear. "Thank you for coming." He closed his eyes, letting the moment sink in. "I would have gone anywhere," he said. "No matter how far. Because you matter." The night around them felt softer now, the darkness less heavy. And in that fragile silence, something unbreakable grew stronger between them. The storm, beyond the waves, the ocean's rhythm surrounded them, steady and endless. Sandra's head still rested gently on Keanu's shoulder, her tears drying slowly in the cool night air. For a brief moment it felt like time had stopped. The world outside, the noise, the demands, the expectations, had disappeared, leaving only two people sharing silence by the water. But peace never lasted long. Sandra sat up, brushing her face with her hands. Her eyes carried a mix of relief and hesitation. "You shouldn't have come, Keanu," she whispered. "If people see you here, they'll start asking questions. They'll twist everything. They'll make it harder." He looked at her, his voice calm but firm. "Let them ask. Let them twist. I'm not here for them. I'm here for you." She turned her face toward the waves, her voice trembling. "You don't understand. I feel like I'm drowning in their stories, in their expectations. The cameras, the interviews, the endless pressure to smile even when I'm breaking inside. And if I show weakness, they don't see me as human. They see me as headlines." Her words cut deep, and Keanu understood more than she realized. He had lived through the cruelty of headlines, through years of carrying private pain while the world speculated and judged. He took a slow breath before answering. "I understand, Sandra. More than you think. I know what it's like when the world takes your silence and turns it into something it never was. I know what it's like when your grief becomes their entertainment." She looked at him sharply, her eyes softening. "You do understand," he nodded. "And that's why I'm here. Not to fix everything, not to silence the world, but to remind you that behind all of it, there are real hearts. Real people who care. I'm one of them. I always will be. For a moment, her expression cracked, showing the fragile truth beneath. Then she reached for her scarf, the same one he had found at the park. She held it in her hands, staring at it. I left this behind on purpose, she admitted quietly. Part of me wanted someone to follow, but I was afraid no one would. His chest ached at her words. He pulled the scarf gently from her hands and folded it. And now you know. You're never invisible to me. But before the moment could settle, the sound of footsteps broke through the night. Both of them turned. Two figures appeared near the edge of the beach. Phones in their hands, screens glowing in the dark. Whispers carried through the air. Is that Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock? One of them muttered. The faint click of a camera followed. Sandra stiffened instantly. Her body tensed, fear flashing in her eyes. No, she whispered. Not now. Not like this. Keanu stood slowly, placing himself slightly in front of her. His voice was calm, steady, but protective. Stay behind me. The two strangers hesitated, torn between curiosity and awe. One lowered his phone, almost guilty, but the other kept snapping photos. We should go, Keanu said firmly, his tone carrying both kindness and warning. After a long pause, the strangers finally turned and walked away, leaving behind only their fading footsteps. But the damage was done. Sandra's face was pale, her breathing shallow. They'll post it. Tomorrow it'll be everywhere. People will say things. They'll say I'm broken. They'll say I'm weak. Keanu turned back to her, kneeling so she would see the truth in his eyes. They can say what they want, but what matters is this. When you needed someone, you weren't alone. The world can only write stories. We live the real one. Her lips trembled, but his words anchored her. She looked at him as if seeing him in a new light. You always find a way to turn the storm into something I can stand through. He gave a faint smile. Not because I'm strong, but because I believe in you. And when you forget your strength, I'll remind you. The waves crashed harder now, the tide pulling in closer. The world beyond this beach might bring noise, cameras, and judgment, but in this fragile moment, something stronger was being written. Trust, loyalty, and a promise that neither storms nor silence could break. When silence found its voice, the ocean stretched endlessly before them, waves rising and falling like the rhythm of two hearts slowly learning how to breathe again. Sandra stood close to Keanu, her scarf in his hands, the sound of footsteps from the strangers already fading into the night. She closed her eyes, her voice trembling but stronger than before. I hate that they saw me like this. I hate that the world only wants to see me smiling. They don't want to see the truth. Keanu listened quietly, his presence steady. Let them see what they want. You don't have to hide from me. You never did. Her lips curved faintly, as if his words were stitching together something broken inside. You've always been like this. You don't try to fix me, you just stay. He gave a small smile, because sometimes staying is stronger than saving. The waves crashed harder against the shore as though echoing the truth of his words. Sandra's shoulders shook, but this time not from fear. She was letting go piece by piece. All these years I've carried so much, expectations, responsibilities, people's opinions. I thought if I admitted I was tired, it meant I was weak. Keanu placed the scarf gently around her shoulders, his voice low but clear. Being tired doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. And you don't have to carry all of it alone. Share it. Lean when you need to. That's strength, too. Her eyes filled with tears, but these tears were different. They weren't from fear or pressure, but from release. I don't know why it's so hard to believe that. Because you've always been the one holding others up, he answered softly. But even pillars need rest. They stood together in silence. Not the heavy silence that had haunted her house, but a healing silence, one filled with presence, trust, and the unspoken truth of deep friendship. Then Sandra did something she hadn't done in weeks. She laughed. It was soft at first, shaky but real. You always know how to turn my storms into something I can stand through. Keanu smiled faintly, relief in his eyes. and you always remind me that kindness is never wasted." She looked at him, her face lit by the moonlight. "Thank you. For not listening to my note. For coming anyway. I'd come every time," he said simply. "No matter how far, no matter how dark. You'll never have to wonder if someone cares." The ocean wind brushed past them, carrying their words into the night. In that moment, Sandra realized the silence she had feared was no longer her enemy. She had found a voice again, not through speeches, not through the world's approval, but through someone who reminded her that even in the darkest times, connection was what healed. The world outside would keep talking. Headlines would come and go. Cameras might twist their story. But none of that mattered here, by the sea, where she was reminded of something stronger. True friendship, respect, and the resilience that grows when two hearts stand together against the weight of the world. Sandra took a deep breath, her voice steady now. "I think I'm ready to go back. But this time, I won't hide anymore." Keanu nodded. "Then let's go back." Together, they walked side by side, the scarf trailing gently in the breeze, their footsteps leaving marks in the sand that the waves slowly kissed away. And as the dawn began to touch the horizon, the silence that once felt heavy had turned into something else, something powerful, something kind.